This is the first session of the day. We'll go through some introductions, and we'll see what are our main goals for this week. And I'm going to have to start with the sad slide of the day. Although you know this very well, I know you know this very well already, that disasters, whether from natural hazards or man-made, costs lives and livelihoods, and everywhere communities are facing humanitarian crises at an increasing frequency and severity. If you go on the website of the IPC or Cadre Harmonisé, and you'll see the latest global report on food crisis, you'll understand that globally, level of hunger remains alarmingly high. And in 2021, the number of people acutely food insecure and in need of urgent assistance was so high. It was close to 193 million people across 53 countries and territories. It was an increase of nearly 26% compared to last year. And unfortunately, there are signs suggesting that the scale of the needs will only continue to grow. So in the backdrop of this, I have a first question to ask. Why emergency response preparedness, or ERP, is so important and necessary? Can I have someone online sharing a thoughts or using your own words to tell me why do you think emergency response preparedness is so important? Someone doesn't see the slide moving? I'm switching slides. And here I'm on the slides asking why ERP is so important, do you think? Can I have a volunteer?
Hello, Cecily.
Yes?
I am Sadiq from Sudan.
Yes, please, Sadiq.
Yes, I think the ERP is very important because hazards and shocks come suddenly. So we have to be prepared for expecting this or anticipating this. Secondly, if the incidents or emergency come suddenly, if we are not prepared by the capacity and also by coordination, we are not able to have a good and timely management of this crisis. And lastly, also because emergencies may have vast cost. So I have not cost what will happen, how much the magnitude of the emergency, and also we have to prevent ourselves from these emergencies. Otherwise, we'll have a devastating maybe humanitarian effects. So ARP is very important in order to save our life and the humanitarian actions.
Thank you very much, Sadiq. You've said it all. Indeed, exactly. So being prepared, that we also call emergency preparedness, or preparedness in short, is a precondition for us to be able to respond quickly and effectively to humanitarian crisis. So when we talk about ERP, the goal is really to optimize the speed and the volume of assistance delivered at the very initial phase of an emergency, and to do that in a coordinated and effective manner. There are some studies that showed that, yes, investing in preparedness have proven its benefits in terms of speed and cost, as Sadiq said. Cost saved on a humanitarian response. There is a study I recommend you to have a look when you have a chance. It's a bit done a while back, but it's still very relevant. It was done in 3 different countries, I think Chad, Pakistan, and I don't remember the third one, where a package of close to 50 different preparedness activities demonstrated, again, in the money amount saved toward the future emergency, a net saving of 6 million USD, and again, in the speed of the response that increased by 2 to 50 days, an average of more than 1 week. And we know that the time saved in response implementation is critical in emergencies, since the speed of the response has direct implications on the lives saved. So the goal of our workshop this week is really for us to appreciate how important ERP is, all the benefits of emergency response preparedness, and how we can strengthen our overall capacities in emergency response preparedness. Okay, so the objectives for this week, for this workshop, is to sensitize you colleagues on the importance of ERP, to give you an overview of the ERP toolkit the GNC recently developed. It's step-by-step guide, the ERP tools we've developed. So it's an ERP plan template. You'll find online tools to capture your planning information that will then generate an ERP dashboard. You'll get familiarized with all these tools that are supporting your ERP planning process. And this is also for you to be coached on how, when, and with whom to undertake what step of the ERP planning process to build a higher level of emergency preparedness among your cluster partners. So as Stefano said at the beginning, by the end of the workshop, you'll be equipped with the knowledge, the practical guidance on how to move the ERP approach forward in your respective country. And keep in mind that at the end of the workshop, we will ask you to commit to 1 or 2 action points you will take after this workshop to increase your level of nutrition emergency response preparedness in your respective country. And I'll come back to that later. Okay, so the agenda for this week, we have 3 half days. Okay, we started at 1:30 p.m. Geneva time today because we wanted to take ample time to introduce each other. We have our introductory session right now. Then we'll go through an overview of the ERP approach, the step-by-step guide and the tools, all the preparatory work, ideally, that needs to be done before we embark in an ERP exercise. And then we'll start with the first step today, that is about understanding hazards and doing disaster risk analysis and monitoring. And then on day 2, we'll start at 1:45 p.m. with a bit of a recap. Then we'll move to step 2, whereby we build a crisis scenario, a planning scenario, against which we'll do all our ERP planning for main hazards. We'll have a step where we do response analysis and response design. And then we have a step where it's all about planning for the operational arrangements, we need to enable this immediate response strategy to be implemented and start anticipating constraints, obstacles that could hinder the timely and effective implementation of the response. And then on day 3, we will have a session where we look at how to mainstream key cross-cutting themes and promote intersectoral collaboration throughout the planning process. And during each of those steps, you'll see that when we identify a gap, we will translate it into a preparedness actions for each and every step. So by this phase of the workshop, we may have a long list of preparedness actions already identified. We will have to trim, consolidate, and prioritize, and put key prioritized preparedness actions into a work plan. And then we consolidate all this planning information in our ERP plan. This is the finalization of the ERP plan document. And finally, our last session will be about how we disseminate an ERP plan for us to reflect a little bit how we are more prepared at the end of the workshop to respond to the next emergency, and discuss a little bit how you're going to move your ERP forward in your respective countries. Okay, I'm just checking that I'm okay with time. Yes, it looks okay with time. So during the workshop, let's agree on a few things for us to have an enabling workshop environment. Again, as I said, I'd like everyone to share experiences, contribute to the discussions. Today we have only one group work exercise, but then tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, we'll work a lot more into smaller groups. It's important you participate in the way you feel most comfortable to do. Either you use the chat box, you type in writing, or you can, raise your hand and share verbally. I'm asking everyone to, as much as possible, attend the whole workshop from beginning to end, because we are going to pretend we are all partners of a nutrition cluster of an imaginary country for which we're going to try to build and draft the ERP plan. So we need to be together from beginning to end. You can ask questions at any time, raise your hand, use the chat box, keep your camera on while you speak. It's good for me to see colleagues I can relate to and feel like I'm not just by myself. And as much as possible, keep your mic muted when you're not talking to prevent too much sounds in the background. And again, yes, you will have at the end of the workshop to commit on how you will advance your ERP approach after the workshop. Okay? So please contribute actively. You'll see that, as I said at the beginning, we are going to work on the tools, the ERP tools that were recently developed for you to start getting familiar with them. They are all in the ERP folder I built for you for this event this month in August. We have the ERP plan template here. When we do group work, you can directly type, document the discussions of your group online in that document. We will be each group working on a different section of the document. This is how, in the span of the 3 days of a workshop, when you will do it with your partners in country, you'll build an ERP plan and get a draft at the end of a workshop by working online. There is also here the preparedness action work plan. So as we go, as you start realizing, oh, I need to do this ahead of a crisis, or I need to prepare for that, you have this Excel file, or we can have it in dashboard. Well, I put already some examples. For each step of the planning process, you'll be able to write down key preparedness actions, define a timeline for it, and a responsible entity. So this is, again, something we keep online because we are working all together on the same document. Okay. And then, yes, I showed this already. If you have any questions, even after the sessions are over, or a reflection, please use the slides here to write your reflections and questions. And what else? Yeah, so we are, as I said, we're going to all together this week work on an imaginary country that I called Zwantipolis, for a case study for us to have something to work on. In your group, you'll see that maybe you want to think of a real country. I'm not sure how feasible this is going to be. When we will split into small groups, we've tried to split the audience by the same geographical region as much as possible. So see if there is something you want to brainstorm specific to that region of the world. But again, I would tend to work with the imaginary country. I developed a short scenario for it. I will share this later with you. Okay, so time is already running. So it's time for me to ask colleagues online, participants, how do you think your cluster, your nutrition cluster or sector is prepared to respond to the next emergency? What would you say is your perceived status level of nutrition emergency preparedness in your country? I don't know if you had a chance to take the short self-evaluation tool I shared by email end of last week. I can put the link again in the chat box here. And for those of you who couldn't find the time, you can do it now, maybe. For those of you who could take this self-evaluation tool, it's a very simple, very qualitative. So it's giving you much of a perceived appreciation of your level of preparedness. It gives you a score at the end with some recommendations. And it gives you a bit of a first hint, maybe, and some indications on where to start or what do you need to work on to start building a higher level of preparedness. So is there anyone online who would like to share about the score they got with this self-evaluation? Nobody took the self-evaluation. Yes, we have hands going up. It's hard for me to see the hands. Okay, Bonaventure, do you want to share?
Yes, thank you very much. Just I have done this exercise from the side of Benin, as we never had an emergency and we don't have any coordination platform existing already. And we don't even, there are some sector kind of meeting which are organized. So we don't have any structure from our side, even from government side. So when just I have done I completed the exercise, I had a score of 2. And just score 2, and I received this free recommendation of what I have to do just to implement progressively the cluster coordinator or a coordination system in my country, in Benin. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Bonaventure. Thank you very much for sharing. Indeed, in your case, for Benin, maybe a good start would be to focus on the part of your country that seems to be more likely, maybe in a situation that might become a little bit worrisome and for which a hazard is becoming more likely to, unfortunately, have a higher impact than first thought. So maybe you can start with that new emergency prone province, or I don't know how we call it in Benin.
Yes, but, the northern area, yes.
Exactly, the northern part of the country, that could be a starting point. And you have in your case room to go with your building little by little your minimum level of preparedness. And I'm hoping that the guidance we provide in the step-by-step guide and during the workshop and in the workshop package we developed will help you little by little achieving a higher level of preparedness. You're starting from the beginning, and little by little you'll grow with a higher level. And so with this tool, thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you. And with this tool, we maybe it's something you can take it again from time to time. Maybe you can take it again in a year from now, and you'll realize that you are a score getting a higher because you'll see how you built your level of emergency preparedness. I see one more hand from Alex.
Thank you. I think my score is similar to what he has just shared, what the colleague has shared. However, for Uganda's case, we have specific regions which are often prone to nutrition emergency. And this is largely to do with refugee settlements and Karamoja sub-region. For Karamoja, we have protracted emergency. But for this year, we have experienced some sort of acute emergency as well. And because of this, which has been declared by the government as real emergency, we have been actually trying to come up with an ERP specifically for Karamoja, because we realize that year in, year out, we have some sort of emergency in that region, and we cannot go on ignoring that. We need to be prepared. So I think the advice that you gave would also apply for Uganda. However, my question is, in as much as a country like Uganda does not often experience nutrition-related emergency, isn't it in order for us to have a nutrition preparedness and response plan as a country? Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. This is something definitely you need to discuss with your partners in country and maybe with your government counterparts. And as you may want to define the methodology you want to use in your specific country. As I said before, maybe you can decide to have a contingency plan or an ERP plan just for your emergency prone area. So it can be for Karamoja region only that you decide to build a more specific plan. Remember, we will have to develop an ERP plan as part of a more advanced level of preparedness for hazards becoming of medium to high gravity. In elsewhere, you can just undertake some minimum preparedness activities just to have some basic foundation established, and we will come to that. Alex, you didn't tell me about the score you got for Uganda when you took the the self-evaluation, and I encourage everyone to write their score down in the chat box, and maybe I can keep them with me and come back to you in a few months from now to see how you may have progress. And
Cecilia,
Alex,
I got two, and I had also written it in the chat box.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. So, Alex, if you have already done a contingency plan for Karamoja, for instance, and you feel like you want to share this example with others, in the ERP plan, in the ERP Google Drive, there is a folder here. I called it country examples. So you go into it, and then you can upload any of your existing plans, colleagues, you would like to share. So you just right click, you press File, Upload, and then you choose in your computer where is the plan, the contingency plan you want to share and upload, and you click Open, okay? And maybe towards the end of the workshop, we'll see all the contingency plan from various countries, existing plans, and maybe we'll find that some of them can be strengthened. And we'll see how throughout the course of the week, how to strengthen your ERP plan or contingency plan to make them more actionable. Okay, we take two more hands. Roland from Niger, over to you.
Thank you, Cécile. I have my total score when I do the exercise was 6.
Okay.
As you know, I think in Niger, the nutrition emergency response plan is integrated into the support plan and the humanitarian needs overview. And in the last year, I think we have done the workshop on ERP approach here in Niger. And in our plan, our nutrition cluster plan for this year, we have planned to organize national capacity building workshop on nutritional emergency preparedness and response at the regional level. It's what I want to share with you. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Roland. And yeah, so this is good. You have already some elements of emergency preparedness for nutrition in your country, and I see you're already planning for additional events that will continue increasing your level of emergency preparedness. So it's good to hear that. We have to see with the score you get. Maybe I hope you find some practical and tangible recommendations for your plan, for nutrition specific plan, to become more relevant, even more relevant than they are already, that they are really unpacking very well how we prepare and how we respond early on. And in Niger, there is a very important example of a seasonal event with a very clear peak of acute malnutrition tied to seasonality. And I know, for having worked in Niger, that there are at subnational level local authorities getting together in the months prior to the expected peak of malnutrition, coming together and prepare for this. And it's a very good example of how we prepare to be able to absorb and cope with a rise in needs. So maybe we can talk more about how Niger deals with that during the week. I take one more question or remarks from Isaac. Isaac, over to you.
Thank you very much, Cecily and the colleague. So let me give you maybe some experience here in Sudan. So I think from the beginning of the year, around March, the OCHA was, having coordination meetings and guidance to all the sectors here, and we started developing our something we call emergency response strategy. Basically, I think maybe like the same like the emergency response plan, preparedness, sorry. And when we finished that one, we had to prepare the emergency activities. Later on, we had to prepare the emergency minimum response and also indicators. And of course, mapping the capacity of the partners to respond, particularly with supply and pre-positioning. And I think currently we have also a specific monitoring tool, because there are 3 kind of emergencies which we have agreed with OCHA and all the sectors here to monitor. That is the disease outbreak. There is the conflict here is very common in Sudan, and of course the flood. So currently we are actually, maybe this week, we're gonna start piloting the tool, which the reporting tool for specific of those indicators which we have been trying to monitor. So basically, I can say that from the nutrition, we have all the sectors actually here in Sudan. They have that kind of system as of now. So we have developed the hours that we can share with you. We have all around 3-4 documents which I can share with you. The response strategy, the minimum package, the activities, and of course there are indicators which we have agreed to be monitoring, and of course maybe the reporting tools that are piloting now. So so the only challenge is that it was, maybe it is not fitting sometimes in the question, because you are talking about emergency preparedness contingents, but here we call it emergency response. Actually it's exactly having the same kind of abbreviation. It's called ERP. But inside it, there are many components. There is the response strategy, there is the minimum package, there is the capacity mapping, there is the activities and indicators, and of course the reporting tool. So that's our experience here, Cecil. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Isaac, for sharing. It sounds like Sudan seems well prepared and using very likely the overarching YASC guidance on ERP. But we'll be very happy to learn more from Sudan. And please, if you can share those documents you're talking about with everyone in the shared folder. I see my colleague Magnat switched on his camera. It means I'm running out of time. Thank you, Magnat. So yeah, thank you again, colleagues. This is the end of the first session of today, and I'm glad to see. Yes.
To see there are some colleagues who have written their scores on the chat also.
Okay, great.
So Guatemala is 7, South Sudan is 7, Afghanistan 8, Niger 6, Liberia 3, Northeast Nigeria 7, CAR 2, and Colombia 5.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you for sharing. And this, I hope this self-evaluation tool can be useful. You can use it within your sector or cluster, go through it with your partners. It can be maybe a way to start initiating a discussion on the ERP approach, and maybe can start giving you some hints on the steps you need to make and the progress you need to make to increase your level of preparedness. So it can be that you already have a contingency plan, but going through the questions you may realize in the tool, you may realize, I have a contingency plan, but I don't really have much details. So often when I look at contingency plans from various countries, we realize that we have a bit our usual nutrition strategic objectives. They implement IYCFE, scale up the treatment of acute malnutrition. That's not enough. What we'll see this week is that in your contingency plan, in your ERP plan for nutrition to be really effective, we will unpack in a great deal of details, as much as possible, key immediate actions that you need to undertake in the early weeks to actually be able to scale up the management of acute malnutrition or scale up your IYCFE activities. But just to say, I will scale up the treatment of acute malnutrition is not enough. We need a more detailed planning for the early weeks. Okay, so I'm stopping now. We can stop the recording for session 1.